Now in this lesson we're going to learn how to find the determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix, and that's using what's called the expansion of minors. The minors are basically a bunch of little 2 by 2 matrix that we're going to break this thing up into. Well, before we get excited, we need to actually know that there's this weird signs determinant thing for a 3 by 3, and what that is if we've got a matrix that's 3 by 3, we've got these signs we have to deal with for our determinant. Okay, and so basically what it is basically you start with a plus sign and then every sign around it is negative. So plus, minus, plus, and then minus, plus, minus, and finally plus, minus, plus. So this is some signs that we're going to have to deal with as we work through this expansion of minors. So just hang on to that. I'll explain as we go. So we do expansion of minors about, and they say about, okay, about a column. Okay, whether it's the first column, the second column, the third column, it doesn't matter, but about that column. So what we do is we take, let's just take the middle column. So we'll do it about the middle column. And so what we do is we write the number for each one of these. So we got 3, and then spread it out. We've got -2, and then 1. Okay. Now these correspond to the signs over here in the middle. So we're going to make this a -3 plus a -2, so plus whatever the number is, and then finally minus the 1. Okay. Now what we're setting it up for is each one of these is going to get its own little matrix next to it. Okay. So those are matrices, and we got to fill these matrices up. So to fill up the first one, so first of all, this whole sign matrix was just for this part right here. So it looks big and ugly, but it's just for that first part where the minus sign went with the -3, and then the plus sign went with the in front of the 2 here, and then finally the minus sign went over here. Right? So now we're ready to set up our matrix, the little matrices for each one of these. So to do that, if I'm looking at the 3, what I want to do is circle the 3 and cross out its row and the column that it's in. The numbers that are left make a 2 by 2 matrix: the -1, the -3, the 1, and the 2. So notice I put these numbers exactly the way that they are written without moving them. Okay. So now we're going to go back and do the 2. So now I'm going to erase that, what I just crossed out, and now I'm going to circle the -2. I'm supposed to cross out its row and the column that it's in. What's left over is 4 numbers that make a matrix: 1, -2, 1, 2. Okay. And I'm going to do it one more time with the 1. Okay. So I'm going to circle the 1 and cross out its row and its column and write what's left over. That's 1, -1, -2, and 3. So now what I've set myself up to be able to do is find the determinant of each one of these little minors. These are called your minors. Alright? This is your minors. These are your minors. Okay? So let's find the determinant for each one, and then we're going to multiply that determinant by whatever number's out in front. So basically I'm going to take -3, and I'm going to times it by -1 times 2, which is -2, minus -3. And then I'm going to take my -2 over here and times it by my 2 times 1, which is 2, minus -2. And then I'm going to take my -1 and times it by my 3 minus -2 times 1, which is going to be, sorry, I lost a negative sign on that 3 there. That's supposed to be a negative. And so that's going to be negative there. So it's -3 minus 2. Okay. So now, if I work these out, this should turn into a 1 times -3, so it's going to be -3. If I work this out, this is going to be 4 times -2, which should give me -8. And this should turn out to be -5 times -1, which is going to give me +5. Okay? And then all I have to do, so after working each one of these out, okay, what you're supposed to do is add the numbers at the end. So if I add these numbers at the end, I should end up with -6. -6 is the final overall determinant for this problem, this 3 by 3 matrix right here. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you that you can do the same problem by expanding around one of the different columns. Okay? It doesn't matter what column we use, but we're going to use, instead of this middle column, I'm going to use the first column. Okay? Okay, so now if I'm expanding around the first column, I'm going to use this first row in my sign matrix. So that means I'm going to use the 1 with the plus sign in front. It's a minus 1 already, but we use a negative sign out in front of there, so we're going to have a minus minus. Okay, I didn't really leave myself enough room there. Let me back up a little bit and make this a minus minus 1 like that. Okay, and then we have our plus in front of the final one. Okay, so again, this minus sign came right down here in front of the negative that was already on my 1 there. Okay, so each one of these is going to get their corresponding minor matrices. So let's go ahead and fill those out. So the first one, cross out my 1 and its column. So I'm left with -2, -3, 1, 2. And then I'm going to erase that. Circle my second -1 and cross out its row and column, and I'm left with 3, -2, 1, and 2. I'm going to erase that again. I'm going to cross out my 1 at the bottom and its column, and I'm left with 3, -2, -2, and -3. Okay, so now I need to do the work of finding each one of these determinants, and the goal at the end is for our final answer to end up being -6 like it was before. So we know that's going to be our answer, so hopefully that's what we get this time. So we find our determinant of this one, so it's going to be 1 out in front times -4 minus 3. Okay, and we would times that by 1, but we don't have to really worry about that. And then we're going to take our 3 times 2 here and get 6 minus 2, and that's times a positive 1 out in front. Okay, and then over here on the last matrix we're going to get -9 minus, it's going to be +4. Okay, and that's times a +1. Okay, so now we just continue to work it out, and we should get -1. It should turn into 8, and this should turn into -13. Okay, and then if I work it out, I should get -13 and my -1, which gives me 8 minus 14, which just so happens to equal -6. Okay, and what you'll see is that it doesn't matter which column you do it around, you'll end up with the same answer both ways. Okay.